COVID-19, why you do this to me? I really don't like being stuck in quarantine. I have no toilet paper, I don't even have a snack. Hey, coronavirus, I want my life back.
Now, did that work? Can you hear me? Parker? You can hear me okay? Can everybody hear me? Let me know if you can hear me. We were all prepared. Thought we were so smart. We had that countdown on. Parker and I sitting here with our feet up. And then we realized what had happened. Okay, just want to make sure that the sound is back on again. I'm adding voice and sound effects for you right now, Craig. I'm worried about that. What you're doing? Okay, we hear you. Thank you very much. Okay, what I said was, good evening, Isolators, and welcome. Thursday? Welcome to the Thursday evening edition of the Isolators. This is show number 83. I'm going to be joined soon by Mike Pinball Clemons and his lovely wife Diane in a few minutes. They just finished their live show, which they do for the Pinball Foundation. So they're going to call me in just a few minutes. Let them have a chance to have a glass of water or something like that. They were talking with Carl Wolf, actually, for the last hour on their Instagram show. Okay, how is everybody doing today? How was your day today? Everybody's itching to get out of isolation. Everybody is itching. Let's find out what you're grateful for today. And let's start populating that. Right, I'm grateful you can hear me now. That is one thing, I'll tell you that. Grateful is my second package came on time. What was the first package? Okay, what else? I am grateful for the beautiful day, my lovely long walk with my dog Bonnie. All right, Pam. What else? Grateful Mike is going to be on tonight, Pinball, and his wife Diane. Mike's going to be a very interesting guest. Mike is sort of walking that tightrope right now. He's been doing, of course, his motivational talks because he is a motivational speaker first and foremost. But of course, he has been asked to address the situation going on with the anti-racism protests. So it's a very difficult line to walk for him, but he does it as he does with everything else. Quite grateful. I kind of missed working with Mike. We were supposed to do the Easter Seals telethon. That got canceled because of COVID. We were supposed to do the Friends of We Care Gala, and that got canceled because of COVID. So looking forward to working with him again. Grateful we survived the storm. Bernice, I was kind of, now the storm I know was kind of had a punch out once you got out of downtown, but downtown it was nothing. I was kind of disappointed. I was all set for this great storm, and it came downtown. It rained for about 5 minutes, and that was it. I like a good storm. I was grateful I got into 12,000 steps today. Good for you, Mike. 10,000 steps a day. That's what you should be doing. Grateful for getting through several work meetings today. What else is on your mind right now? We got to kill a bit of time until Mike and Diane call us on Skype. What else is on your mind today? Linda says, I average 15 to 20,000 steps a day. That's a fantastic number. You should see my steps, how they changed pre-isolation and after isolation. I was doing so well, 10 to 20,000 steps a day, and then it went down to like 600 a day. So, yeah, and that's my fault. I know. That is totally my fault. Next week, we're going to be talking about a very important topic, and that is something not a lot of people are talking about right now, and that is, what are we going to do after isolation? This is not just simply a matter of we're going back to a normal life. Normal is done. Normal is gone. So what kind of life are we going back to? As well, what did we learn through COVID that we want to keep? There are some things that happened during isolation to us, I think, that made us better people. And I know in this show we've had so many different experts on, and I hope that you were able to take some of the advice. And they're just about to join. I just got the phone call, by the way. So we'll just get Parker a chance to get them online. And Parker is he's my roadie right now. He's my one and only roadie. Okay, you know what? Let's introduce them first of all, Parker. So let's run this. This is familiar, right?
Clemons moves up, takes the ball within an area where there are players, but it isn't going to matter because he's gone. This is a 68-yard punt return touchdown for the Pinball.
Oh, you know what? You got his football card, and, he's got the most all-purpose yards, lots of records in the CFL, including 6 Grey Cups he's been directly involved with, Canadian Football Hall of Fame. And that's that card. But he has another card, a speaker, philanthropist card, motivational speaker, Pinball Clemons Foundation, 176 scholarships given so far, 200-plus kids mentored, 231 schools built in 7 developing nations, 9,000 students a year impacted and counting, a member of the Order of Ontario, recipient of the Queen's Jubilee Medal. And he is joining me right now along with his what is known as the better half. Hi, Diane. Hi, Mike. How are you?
Excellent. How are you? Good. I call her my bride.
Yes. Now, just before we get going, there's just because you called in so late. There's just a bit of a technical problem with your picture. Mike, can you move to your left a bit?
To my left.
Yeah. More. Keep going. keep going. Keep going. Yeah. That is much better. Okay.
There we go.
That is, how are you, Diane?
I am well. How about you, Kevin?
I am doing quite all right, Mike. Come back. Come back. I am so thrilled. I'm so thrilled both of you can join us today. Oh, and we're having some problems with your Skype going in and out. So if every once in a while I stop you, that's going to be the reason. How are you both holding up?
We're doing well.
Doing well. Thank you for asking. Yes. So it's obviously a challenging time for so many, but we are physically well and the kids are well. So when the kids are well, we're doing well.
And are you calling me from the ballroom at the Royal York, or what is that behind you?
No, that's just our.
Yes, that's Diane's piano room. I can't play a piano or anything artistic.
I can't play either, but
she sings. Yeah, so.
And it's especially, it is especially kind of you to join me right now because you literally just were on the air for an hour over on your Instagram show for the Pinball Foundation called The New Normal. You were talking to Carl Wolf today.
We sure were, and wow, I didn't know his story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so coming from Lebanon and then they were in Dubai for a while, and he came over here with his brother at 16. His brother was older. And brother is doing well, and he's what is he? What is he doing? Is he
something like
a physicist or something like that? And Carl, so they were both immigrants who fled Lebanon because of the unrest. His father was even shot actually as they were departing, and so it just. But he's still alive. He's still, he wasn't killed. But what a story! My goodness.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing the stories that we have behind people, and that we learn about them. I mean, Mike, you have an amazing story yourself in growing up in Florida and in Dunedin. And actually going to a segregated school.
Yeah, well, that's my mom went to an all segregated school.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And she had me as at 18 as a single parent, and so Diane probably has a more fulsome story though, because she was one of 8 children, and so big family all together, and and wasn't without its challenges.
Tell me a little bit more about that, Diane.
Well, like Michael said, I grew up in a family of 8. It was a real struggle for us. My dad fought in the Korean War, and he, my family grew up in Alabama. And right before I was born, they moved to Florida. And that's where I grew up in Florida. And it had its challenges. There were times when, for us, there were times when we didn't have much to eat. Um, I remember a story in particular. My parents had gone out; the cupboards were absolutely bare, and they decided that they were going to go to try to find a food bank or something where they could get some food for us. And left my older sister in charge, and they were gone for hours. And as kids, Kevin, it's tough when uh, you're hungry. And so we started complaining, and finally my sister decided to go into the kitchen and try again, only to find that there was nothing there. And so she told us to sit in a circle. We sat in a circle, and she came back and she put a box of salt in the middle of the circle. And then she left again, and she came back with a roll of toilet paper. And we were all looking like, what is she doing? Right? But she said nothing. She said absolutely nothing. She began to tear off a square of tissue, and she sat it in front of each one of us. And after she did that, she went back to the middle of the circle, picked up the box of salt, and she began to pour salt on the tissue in front of each of us. And then she sat down and she looked at us and she said, I want you to ball it up and I want you to eat it. And unknown to us, we didn't realize that the salt would help with the hunger pains. And so we sat there and toilet paper and salt because that was all we had to eat. And so that's just an example of some of the hard times we went through. I remember once Mike and I took the girls back to Alabama, where my parents grew up, where they literally worked in the cotton fields. And for pennies a day, they would work from sunup to sundown. And I remember my dad telling us a story about my mom, how because she wasn't very healthy, that she worked slower, so she couldn't quite work as fast as he could. So he would work really fast to help her to pick her cotton so that she could meet her quota, so that they could get their 25 cents for that day, or however many pennies that was for the day. And we took the girls back one year. I think it was for my grandmother's 100th birthday. And I wanted to do something meaningful with the girls. So I took them, Mike and I took them. The cotton fields were still there. My grandmother lived in the same house. We walked down the street to those cotton fields. And we walked in the cotton fields, stood there, and we began to pick some of the cotton. And I began to tell them stories that my parents shared with me of how real the struggle was for them, and hope that it would make an impact on their lives as it had for me.
Wow. It's tough because right now we have a bad audio connection. In fact, I'm going to ask, can I call you guys back? I'm going to hang up and see if we can establish a better connection. Sometimes that happens. So stay there. Stay there. We'll call you right back. All right. So we'll just take them out of the mix and give them another shout there. We'll bring them back on. And I apologize for that. I mean, the story is a profound, deep story. So let's keep our fingers crossed that we get a bit of a better connection. As far as it's a little bit better. It's a little bit better. It's just sound. Yeah. This is the problem, right? With all of these Skypes and Zooms and things like that, you were at the mercy of the digital gods.
Technology, yes.
Yeah. So we're on a computer now. Would a phone work better?
Would a phone work better?
It sounded better on their Instagram.
Oh, did you use that on your Instagram?
No, we actually had an iPad that we used on the Instagram.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I think you know what? Let's should we suffer with this a little bit and see if we and if not, we'll switch over to the phone.
Okay.
Isn't that the great thing about you couldn't do this when I was on television.
Yes,
You know? You'd have a producer pulling their hair out, going, "What are you doing?"
Yes.
You are such a lovely couple, and I've known you for years, but I've never and I've watched your show. I've never seen you so somber as these past few weeks. Is that kind of an accurate observation? Do you feel a little bit of the pressures that are mounting because of isolation, because of the stand against racism? What's it doing to you?
No, it's not. It has nothing to do with the pandemic, and with that, we graciously embrace whatever we have to do to keep people safe, to keep those who are most vulnerable safe. The challenges those who are going on the front lines don't compare to us. So that's for us. That's a matter of doing what you're supposed to do so that we can help progress and help people get back to work, get to their jobs, their businesses. So we're willing to do whatever it is. But the protests and the sort of thing where everybody wants you to comment, and I'm not real sure that in reality, this challenge has been around a long time, right? I can tell you big picture, right? Some things, but if you ask me what exactly should you do, right? I'm not exactly sure, and if it was that easy, we probably would have had it solved by now, right? But there is a painfulness that exists because growing up, the year I was born was the same year desegregation ended. And so while I didn't go to a segregated school, there was still a lot of those racial tensions. And as we see, many of those still exist today. So, but we grew up, it was more pronounced in that era. And so the weight of that can be challenging. I remember being in some situations and called some names. And the reality is I wouldn't trade my upbringing with anybody. I was happy all the time then, right? But there were moments, right? And moments that were that poignant moments that you can remember, that are specific, that are demoralizing, debilitating in some respects, right? And then you, at some point, you build that shell and you said, I'm not going to allow this to affect me. This is not something that I'm doing, right? All I can do is control myself. So as it comes from the outside, I'm not going to let that affect me in a negative way. I'm just going to keep moving. And you can't stop it from bothering you a little bit, right? But we dismiss it, keep moving on. This time there was I garnered a shared feeling of helplessness that existed amongst people who felt so powerless. And it was that same kind of feeling I felt at times as a kid. And so that's part of it. And then, the other part is we need to have the conversation, right? But more than the conversation, like we need to get down to say that we are going to support the not just the movement as they call it, right? But we are going to do things that would promote the real freedom, right? Which means better policies around policing, but it's not just policing, and we're police are not the sole problem. Racism happens, as Diane says, at the department store. When she's at the department store and the person's following her around and is looking at her like, what are you doing in this department? You can't afford this. And she says she buys something just to prove it, right? And, that's silly, right? She knows it doesn't make sense, but she'll do it. She's done it before, just to have the person say, look, yeah, I can afford this. I can buy this. And it happens in everyday life. It happens in...
Mike.
Yes.
Okay, I think we're going to have to try calling you back on the phone. Do you have the Skype on the phone as well?
I believe so. So let's try.
Just make sure. If not, what we could do is at least just, why don't we just get a phone line with them and use their audio from the phone so at least we can hear it? Because you're saying such powerful things, and every once in a while there's little hiccups, and I want to make sure that they're getting across okay.
Okay.
Do you want to try? Okay, just... We're just going to check. We're talking with Diane and Mike Clemons right now. And we're talking about motivation, emotion. We're talking about good deeds. We're talking so much right now. What's he doing, Diane?
Get on his phone. I think
Is he playing solitaire?
I wouldn't be.
Hold on. And again, I appreciate everyone's patience right now, but I want to make sure we get that whole message going. I want to be able to hear everything that you're saying.
Thank you.
If not, tell you what, Mike, let's at least just get you on the phone.
Okay.
What are we going to do, Parker? Are we going to just do it on the microphone here? I'm going to call you right now. Should I call your phone or Diane's phone?
Either one is fine.
Yes.
Okay, I will call you here. There we go. And then what we'll do is we'll bring your audio down here. There we go. Okay.
Hello?
There. All right. So we'll take the audio from here, if that's okay.
Okay.
Now turn or mute your TV as well. Yeah, it should. Or mute your Skype, I should say, your computer. And there we go. Yeah, no, mute our microphone. That's what we'll do. All right. There we go. Okay. Can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
Okay, and Parker, can we hear them? Just, all right. Well, let's you know what? I want to, first of all, I want to talk about motivation and hope. And so I want to show two sides of Mike Clemons as a coach and as a motivational speaker. Have a watch and a look.
Woo. Guys, I think of myself as a rational man. A guy who understands perspective about life and what's important. Part of it is this. It's when you truly care about somebody and you're willing to work together with them and you're really, truly willing to do it, not just for your own good, but for their good first. When you think about somebody else first, they truly become family. Who are we? Family. Who are we? Family. Who are we? Family. The fact is, if young people ran the world, we'd have a kinder, more compassionate. You have an indomitable, indefatigable genius that refuses to give up. Young people, if you were running the world, our world would be a better place. The fact is, as people, we truly are better together.
Yeah, we are better together. First of all, what a good-looking guy there in the dressing room, that young buck.
Oh, my. So that was the dressing room before the Grey Cup? Is
That was before the before you won the Grey Cup in, when was it, 1994.
Okay.
So this show is about positivity.
Yes.
you are a positive person. So how difficult is it for you to still walk that line, that positive line, and stay positive in the face of all this adversity?
It's not very difficult for me at all. We try to always control what we can. So with this particular situation, we're trying to make ourselves as available as we can. And but it really is being grateful, right? One, that your family is healthy and safe, that you are in a position where you can do the things that you need to do to keep others healthy and safe. And so we are just really excited, right, that we are in a position to be helpful in this situation as much as possible. And the reality is during some of the most difficult times, right, is where our greatest accomplishments come from. It's growing through that pain. You don't just go through it, you grow through it. And so we just always just try to be positive as you're moving through, because the opposite just doesn't work well, right? And so if you take the positive approach, it doesn't mean that things are easier. It's just that we learn to be grateful where we are.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Again, we're having so many technical problems here today. I apologize. When you talk to people, and and I've heard you speak so many times, and Diane, you speak as well, and through your music as well. What message? I'm going to go with Diane. What message do you want to get across to people right now? And I don't know if you can quote any of your songs at all during this, but what message do you want to get across?
For me, I think a lot of people, I was saying this the other day, that I've had a lot of my white friends to call me and say, "Are you okay? Right? Are you okay? What can I do?" And some of them just don't really know what to say at all. Because as you know, Kevin, racism it's a tough subject. And a lot of us don't know how to address it or what to say when we're in the middle of it. And sometimes I think it's better to say something and be wrong than to say nothing at all, right? Just say something. I think it's important just to begin to have conversations. Have conversations about what's going on in the world right now with racism. And it's just not with policing, because I have two brothers that are policemen. One just retired after 35 years. He was a lieutenant. And I have a brother right now who's a policeman in Florida on the front lines of all of this. And so I don't think that it's just in policing. It's in our workplace. It's in the corporate world. It's in the schools. It's in every aspect of our lives. And it's just been covered up for so long. And now it's being uncovered once again. And we need to just begin to have a conversation.
How do we stay positive through this, though? Because the negativity scares people. The negativity makes people dig their heels in. And so you have, different opinions that just conflict with each other rather than listening and collaborating. How do we get a positive dialogue going and positive change as a result?
The 7 habits of highly effective people. One of those 7 habits was seek first to understand and then to be understood, right? And so as we seek to, this is one of those topics where if you don't experience it, it's really, really tough to understand it, On the other side, if you're experiencing it, right, and you're doing so on a daily basis, you can't understand why in the world can they not see it, right? And I had one friend sort of say, it's like having the CN Tower, right? So you got the CN Tower really big up there, and that is racism. And I've been avoiding that my whole life. I've been driving around it, navigating, and figuring out how to get around it. And it was like all of a sudden, right, my friends woke up and say, whoa, look at that. The CN Tower, right? And you've been avoiding that all of your life. And so that doesn't mean that either side should see it or should not see it. That's not the message here. Is that it's so challenging to really be able to relate to what it is and what it means, and if you're not experiencing it. And so it does require us to work hard, to give a little bit of extra effort to try to understand people and try to understand the other side. There was an NBA owner, Mark Cuban, who said, this is not a black problem. He said, it's our problem, right? Being a white person. And so what he was saying there is that this is something they've had to deal with all of their lives, right? And it's not, they are, to some level, powerless to change this without our help. It takes us, right? And so now I don't believe that it's just a white problem. It's something that we all need to solve together. But I appreciate the understanding to say that, hey, I'm going to try to get on this side and understand this first. And then I will then, be in a more powerful position to try to create change.
I can understand where Mark Cuban was coming from, and I understand what you're saying. And so often we tend to file things, categorize things, and it's us and it's them and black people and white people. And then we start saying, well, they've got it tough, or it's our problem, your problem. When it comes right down to it, it's society's problem. We are all in the same boat. We're all in the one planet, the one piece of land, and we're all here. So if one group of people, no matter what it's for, whether it's for the color of their skin, their religion, or whatever, are being oppressed or marginalized, then you know what? We all suffer as a result of that.
Well, a black activist would right now not be very happy with you, mm-hmm. right? Because they would say, yes, it's all of our problem, except for I'm the one who's impoverished. I'm the one who goes to jail, several times more likely to go to jail. If I do the same thing that you do, I'm more likely to be convicted. I'm more likely to get a longer sentence, and so on and so on and so on. And so from that perspective, yes, it is our problem. It's always our problem. But the reality is this one black people have had to deal with for an inordinate amount of time. And that's what creates the frustration when we say it's our problem, but we don't act on it, and it has these kinds of ramifications. The kind of ramifications where people are killed, the kind of ramifications where people have been abused sexually, emotionally. Through time, there have been rules and regulations around the lack of progress of people of color. And so there's a real bulky part of that, and as black people, we have to be careful not to say, and this has been going on for 400 years, right? Because it is 401 years, but there's been a tremendous amount of progress that's been made in that time. Now, and so that's one side saying, oh, yes, we're all together. That's great, because you're going to go home tonight and you're going to sleep, the house that you're in is going to be warmer than mine, and so on and so on. And so it is a really, really tough conversation in trying to understand both sides of it. We've been very fortunate ourselves, and part of the reason I chose to live in Canada and ask my wife, if she would join me, was because I felt that we could we would have more freedom here. Yes, racism exists here, but we have more freedom, and we enjoy, I think, more of the freedoms, if you will, of life than we would have down in the U.S.
I guess, yeah, and up until now, I think we need to participate more. And when I say, maybe I shouldn't say it's our problem, but it's our challenge. It is everybody's challenge to change this once and for all. I can't believe in 2020 we are actually still sitting here and even talking about this. It's interesting because last year I broke my foot and I got a little scooter to get around town. And I thought, okay, no problem. I can still take the TTC and all that. No, the TTC is not fully accessible. I thought it was. Go Transit, there's a few things that aren't accessible there. I thought it was completely 100% accessible. And so I would get on social media. I can't believe TTC isn't accessible. And other disabled people said, really, Kevin, you're just realizing that right now? We've been complaining about it for years. And even the TTC were saying, oh, no, we're doing a great job. Well, no, there's a lot of things that they do wrong. And I know it's not an equal comparison whatsoever, but the very first thing we have to do, and we've said this before about, any 12-step program. What's the very first thing you have to do? Admit you have a problem. Admit there is a problem. And if you have some parts of society saying there's no problem, well, then you can't go anywhere to fix it together. And sometimes that's the toughest battle, is just realizing there is a problem.
Yeah, and that is so true, and you said it right. I think so. The very first step is admitting that there is a problem, and the statistics bear it out, the analytics bear it out. But a lot of times we don't think there's prejudice, or prejudice isn't like it is in the U.S. We'll often say, but when there's a young lady who I was on a panel with yesterday, whose father purchased Hooked on Phonics for her when she was 2 years old. He got home that evening and she was reading already. At 4 years old, she was in school, and the teacher sent a note home to her father to say that, you need to come in and have a meeting. And he said, she's going to tell me how wonderful and how smart my daughter is. And she actually said, I think your child is slow. Said she every day during recess, where everybody's playing on the other stuff, she goes over and she picks up these books and she makes up stories. The other kids even come around to listen to her sometimes. And he waited and he was really patient. And then afterwards, he was like, if you really cared about my child, you would have thought that it's pretty fascinating that she had the ability to actually engage young people and have them sit there during recess and listen to her, right? But the reality is that she's actually reading, and you haven't taken the time, right, to look at the book to know and understand that. So she went and got the principal, and the principal sided with the teacher. They went in there, so they said, okay, let's have her analyzed. And she was analyzed, and after the analysis, they came back, and this is in Canada. The person who did the analysis just went crazy on the principal and the teacher, saying, I can't believe that you call this is probably the most brilliant student you've ever had, and you're calling that child slow. And so these are the kind of things that happen with more frequency. This happened to us with our middle daughter. A similar situation. She was very advanced, and we kind of informed them that we needed to be able to keep her attention because in the previous school we were in, she just we need, and so we were in a private school to kind of keep her entertained more, and I wasn't there, but they didn't have very kind remarks, and she did end up being a straight A student and left the school 2 years later to go be challenged a little bit more. And so these kind of things happen, and people could say, those kind of things happen to everybody, right? And the reality is not with the same level of frequency, not with nearly the same level of frequency. But it's also important to know this, Kevin, right? It is not your fault. No one here living today started racism. This is an inherited challenge. And in North America, there were some practices that were embedded, right, that really created a culture that still permeates through our lives today. But this is not something we created. But it is something that exists, and we should be responsible enough to deal with it.
Diane, do you think that I've always tried to be an optimist? Are you optimistic that maybe something will change this time? But you know, we've seen this before. We've seen it so many times before. Is there something different this time?
I think there is something different. I don't know how optimistic I am, if I'm going to be completely honest with you, but I do see something different in what's happening right now in the world. But we have to, I think everyone has to come to the table on it. And everyone needs to admit that there is a problem. And it's not just, like I said earlier, it is in all aspects: corporate, policing, schools. It's in every aspect. I was watching an interview, I believe it was last night, and it was a young black actor, and she was saying how racism has affected her. And she told this story that I could really relate to, about how she was in the car with, I think it was a film producer, very well-known film producer, all dressed up in a suit, and they were going to an event. They got pulled over by the cops, and she was saying how many times that she had been pulled over previously and how she had been treated. But this one particular time, she said, when she was pulled over with this white producer, the cop was really, really nice and really, really kind. And he went on to say to the producer, well, we stopped you because we've been having problems with prostitutes. And he looked at her, and she was a black actress. And she looked at him and said, wow, really? And I remember when Michael and I were in Monaco a few years ago, and we were standing in this really lavish hotel in Monaco. And if you've ever gone to Monaco, it's like all rich white people. Like it's a lot of money there. And we were all dressed up, about to go out to a really nice dinner. And Mike walked over to the bar to get me a glass of juice. And as I was standing there, I had 3 white men come over. And they looked me up and down. And they said to me, how much for the night?
Wow. Wow.
It hurt me so deeply that here I am, the only black woman standing in this hotel lobby, and they choose to think that I was a prostitute.
Yeah.
Nothing, just a prostitute. And it broke my heart to think that, wow, this is where we are today, still.
Yeah.
And that was on our 20th wedding anniversary. It was
wow.
20-day trip that we had to Europe, and we went on, but it did scar the trip.
Yeah. It's horrifying. I mean that, and it's something I cannot relate to. I cannot relate to being stopped by police, and I don't. This is the other thing too. Is we're at the whim of misinformation, and people are putting out bad information on purpose because they have agendas. And so when we hear things like, there's certain people with agendas who say, "Oh, look what they want. They want us to completely shut down all the police forces and defund the police and that." And these are responsible leaders some of them are saying this. And yet the message is not shut down the police. The message is, can we take some of the money that we're doing to weaponize police and militarize police and actually put it into community programs and help people that way? So we need to. It's harder today with all the information we have. It's harder today to find the truth, and it's harder today to find that information.
It is, and part of that is mixed messaging on both sides. We can't. That's not a singular thing. The call to defund police is something that that has been very pronounced, right? And it's something that is misleading, right? Mm-hmm. Because it doesn't mean that we don't want any more police, right? It means that we need to reposition dollars, right? We put such a focus on law and order, and it's amazing because we have less law and order than most of the civilized world. I think the U.S. Actually incarcerates more people than the rest of the world, right? And so when you look at the U.S. being 350 million people, there being over 7 billion in the world, and they actually incarcerate more people there than all the rest of the countries in the world, and that's pretty incredible. And so our emphasis seems to be on that law and order piece, rather than expecting the best of people and giving them abilities, investing in them in ways that make them productive, rather than structuring them in places of incarceration.
Yeah, and essentially, what's going to happen to a young black man who is constantly pulled over by the police for nothing, year after year after year? It just boggles the mind that it is still happening in 2020. But, and again, I have this optimism that maybe we can do something, but we need leadership. And I don't see a lot of of true leadership in this area.
Well said. And, it's hard because as you begin to talk about the facts, right, it becomes it almost feels like a blame game, right? And but again, police officers coach me from 8 years old to high school, and some of the biggest influences in my life, with my mom being a single parent. And so it's not police, it's bad police, right? Bad police make it bad for the good ones. And further to that, right, it's not policing, it's our culture. The same thing happens with graduation rates. The graduate, 40%, I think, of black youth black boys don't graduate from high school in Toronto, right?
How much?
I think the number is 40%. I believe the number is 40%.
That's
it's appalling.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying that's wrong. That is just, wow.
Yeah, and we parents have an accountability to be there with their kids and get that education part right. On the other side, the education system is one of the best funded systems that we have in our province or country, for that matter. And so there has to be a dual responsibility. We can't say that this this side isn't or this side. There's a dual responsibility, but we have to get better.
You know what, guys? I'm sorry. I'm looking at the time right now. You guys must be exhausted. You've been on the air for 2 hours now. But I'm so glad you joined me. I wish you all the best, and I wish an early end to isolation so you can get back out there and doing what you do best. There's a couple of pictures here of you and me that I missed this year. We were supposed to be doing the gala just last week, the Friends of We Care. And, I miss that. I miss working with you, so we got to get back to it.
And if I could say, in all of this, we are thankful for the country that we live in. We are thankful for the opportunities that we do have here, and they are plentiful. We're grateful for the opportunity to have this conversation on your podcast, and there are many more positive things that are happening presently in our lives here, and so let's know that this is a discussion, and it's an uncomfortable discussion for us as well. Being black does not make me right. It doesn't give me more answers, right? And we need to progress together, and it is not equality but fairness that should be our pursuit. Fairness, we can't analyze, we can't legislate love. We don't know what people's hearts look like on the inside, right? But we do know that some of the figures, like 40% of black young men don't graduate high school, that has to get better. And so we can push to get those things accomplished so that we have a greater degree of fairness. And then after we get to that greater degree of fairness, we can talk about equality.
All right. Diane and Mike, thank you so much for this.
Thank
Absolute
you,
pleasure,
Kevin.
Kev. Yeah.
All right. Have a good night. It's always, an eye-opener, isn't it? It is. Such a great couple, by the way. They're such a wonderful couple, always giving and working hard. And wow, that was a shocking stat. 40% of black youth do not graduate. And that is our problem, because if you don't graduate, the chance of you getting a decent, well-paying job diminish. Then you become a burden on society, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's in everyone's best interest that everyone, no matter what color, what religion, whatever, graduate and go on to help society. And Mike's right. This is an uncomfortable, awkward conversation. It is. I mean, okay, going to be honest. I felt like apologizing to them. Didn't you? I felt like this. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know what else to say. So we need to keep being that uncomfortable and that awkward right now until we're used to it, until we get over it, and then have a meaningful dialogue and meaningful talk. There's so much noise. There's so much misinformation. There are so many different agendas. And I want to take all those people that have all the different agendas, and I want to lock them in a room somewhere so we can all let the grown-ups talk. But I'm looking for leadership somewhere out there, someone who is going to not just talk about it and not hold public meetings about it. I'm looking for a leader out there who is going to take this and change things. I'm looking for someone who is not trying to appease all of the special interests. I'm looking for a political party that in the midst of all this does not put out what appears to be an inflammatory statement, as the Conservatives did yesterday, as one particular person did yesterday, using a lot of America speak. Not the time. Not the time. This has been going on for hundreds of years, 400 years. And 2020 needs to be the beginning of the end of this. And you have to realize there's a problem. I'm not even going to debate whether or not there's a problem. And if you want to debate that, go somewhere else. But we have to get over our awkwardness. We got to stop feeling sorry for ourselves. And we have to put aside color and look at human beings. And like Mike said, this is not really a police problem. The police are enforcing the beliefs and ideals of a system. And that's where you get systemic racism. So that's what happens. And we put more and more money into policing, more armored vehicles, more powerful weapons. It's not about defunding the police to the point that there are no more police. The idea is we are militarizing our police to the point where it's just becoming a fulfilled prophecy that all of a sudden there is more crime. It's like we've got fires burning all over the place. And so we just keep building more and more fire stations, more and more fire stations, buy more fire trucks, buy more fire trucks. Instead of simply saying, okay, well, let's just put the fire out and let's find out what's starting all these fires. And then we won't need so many fire stations and so many fire trucks and so much money spent on that. Try and get past the noise. Try and get past the hate. Try and get past the guilt, if that's what you want to call it. And let's just solve it. Let's fix it. That's all. That's all. Okay, what's coming up tomorrow here? Joy McCarthy is going to be here. She is our natural health guru, and she's going to be talking about smoothies and booster smoothies and what you need to know about that. All next week, we're going to be talking about getting ready to get back to the new normal. What do you need to know to mentally prepare yourself for heading back out there in the wild? All coming up next week here. And Sunday, you heard her yesterday. She will be back again on Sunday. Marcia Brown from Trust 15 will be here with her shopping list of what her kids need. And we're going to help, if we can, try and fill some of the things on the shopping list. Try and stay positive. Try, debate this, talk about things, educate yourself, find out about things, turn off the news. Just turn off the news right now. Watch it 5-10 minutes a day, but don't binge it. Inform yourself of something. Find out about it. Get the truth yourself. And then let's talk. And let's keep talking. And let's keep talking until we can hopefully fix this. Until tomorrow, thanks for joining it. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other.
COVID-19, why you do this to me? I really don't like being stuck in quarantine. I have no toilet paper, I don't even